Right, so here we have an example of a photography project. So this theme is colour. However, there's lots of different projects we do within year 10 and 11. But this is just an example of one that has been previously done last year. So as you can see, the first thing is research. So we often do research in the terms of a mind map or visual research board. So as you can see, there's lots of pictures and words just to kind of generate some ideas. So there's lots of things on here. And then this is a visual research board, often called a mood board or a mind map. It's up to you what you want to call it, but this is just visual imagery that will help you decide what direction you might end up going in. So here's another one. So this is more artist based. So this student has found lots of artist works which they feel respond to colour. So artist research plays an absolutely huge part because that is your contextual reference. Like if you've got an idea in your head, you've got to kind of have a look at what's been done before to kind of generate some more ideas for you to develop your work as time goes on. So this is just an example of how we might present artist research or photographer research, and then just a visual board of some of their work. Now, things like this, so this is just my favorite photograph. This is really great to actually just kind of give myself as the teacher, but also anyone else who looks at your work, why you've picked that color and what it represents and how that links in with your project. It doesn't have to be this many words. This student just obviously has had quite a lot they wanted to put on paper, but there's not really a limit in terms of how much you write, but you don't need to write nearly as much as this, but this is a very good high quality example. So again, now what we often do is you do recreation. So you find a photograph of an artist's work that you really like and you try and recreate it. It doesn't have to be the exact same. It can be very similar. So for instance, this student has looked at this effect where the image is black and white and they have chosen to do spot color, where they have chosen to make sure that here, like on the artist research, it is the strawberry and it's the crayon. Whereas in the students, they have done a rose and they have done a pen. So again, it is a recreation and then they've evaluated it to kind of say what was more successful, what wasn't successful, and what perhaps they would do differently. So again, more artist research. So I'm going to go through a little bit faster now because it is just rinse and repeat, but this is a different artist who has a different take on colour. And this is their recreation. So this was the photographer's original idea, and this is their photograph. And over here, as you can see, this is the student's interpretation and recreation. Very, very similar, but again, the student has kind of used their own initiative and what they want to do. See, the colours of the pencils are completely different, the shape of the door, even the person, because you're not necessarily trying to get it exactly the same. You're trying to recreate and put your own interpretation and spin on it. So we do a lot of shoot planning. And basically, when we do shoot planning, we do sketches. Now, the sketches don't have to be a work of art, but you do have to note down your ideas. And we do this within a sketchbook. And this is a really good example. So, for instance, you will just have ideas for composition. So, how you want your images to be laid and what you want on your image to be visible to the eye once you've taken it. So, think about the camera settings. What are you actually going to use? So for instance, here, as you can see, the ISO is 200 and they've explained why they're going to use that and why the aperture is there and what shutter speed they're going to use. Really important elements that really show that you know how to use a camera and you know how to use it well, and you're able to put all your ideas down on paper. So once you've done that, you will take a photo shoot and you will then create contact sheets. Now, contact sheets are very important because, as you can see, that gives me and that gives any viewer who's looking at your work your thought process. What were you thinking? What's good? What's bad? What are you planning on doing? So we usually use a key. Now, the key can be different depending on what you want to show. I usually say the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you want green. They are the good quality photographs you've taken that perhaps don't need too much editing. Amber, I sometimes use because actually they're the ones that you might want to edit further. They might need to be cropped. They might need to be made more vibrant. There might be some edits you need to make that photograph as good as possible. And again, what about those photographs that just haven't turned out that you're intending to delete and not using? So it's a way of kind of showing me and anyone who's looking at your work, your intentions. Okay, so as you can see, really clear annotations about intentions for the shoots. And here we go. So this is one of the most important things you will do within photography, and that is your editing process. Every photograph you take, generally you will edit. Now, the reason for that is you want to make your photographs better, because you've got to think these photographs are supposed to end up somewhere. Like whether they are on a gallery wall, are they going to be in a magazine? Are they going to be on clothing? What are you going to do with the image? And depending what artists you've looked at or what ideas you have will depend on what edits you're going to create. Everyone will do something a little bit different. So we use Photoshop, which is fantastic because Photoshop is the leading editing software, and it's really great to learn this process, especially if you're thinking about doing anything like this post 16. Photoshop is one of the things employers and colleges and universities really like you to have had explored and done things with. So we screenshot the editing process because we are proving that we are able to use Photoshop. So it's not as good just editing something and then putting the picture saying, I've done this. We need proof that you have done that. That is to show us evidence that you were able to use lots of different techniques when developing your work. So I'm just going to go through quite quickly now, just to kind of give you an idea of how this looks on a project. Now, all your images that you create now, because they're in a PowerPoint, they look their best on the PowerPoint, but you can, of course, print them, you can present them. And what we do is we present the best ones at the end, and you can decide if you want to print these off because you might want to present them. So these are the best ones from this student shoot, okay, all relating to colour, clear influences from both of those photographers that they researched. Then, now you might do more than one shoot. This student has actually done 3 shoots within there. So as you can see, it's the same process, but these are different ideas. So this is more stationary based. So that's where they're using that theme color, and they're using stationery because they got that idea from the artist they've looked at, and they've done a whole shoot dedicated to creating photos with stationery. Okay, and these are the best photos. So then they thought about color again, and food is a huge one. So they actually did a food photo shoot. So 3 very distinctive and different photo shoots, and they've created edits based on all of that. So really clear and concise. This is a great page. Clear and concise imagery, so you can see the before and after. You also know exactly how they've done it, and they've screenshot the process. Really important things to know that this is what you will be doing if you choose to take photography. So some really high quality photographs. Now, we do things at the end where we actually plan an outcome. Now, the outcome can be anything. It is whatever you feel is going to work best for whatever you've come up with. And you will take inspiration from your artist, from your own work, and what you would like to create. So for instance, this student had an idea of perhaps using bits of elements from their work. They thought about composition and how they wanted it to show, and they were thinking about, do they want it landscape, portrait, what textures do they want within their work? Now, obviously, I have concealed identity for a reason, but this kind of gives you a bit of an idea where they were now really thinking about their own work. This is what they wanted to do. Yes, it is inspired by what they've looked at, but as you can see, every single thing they do now is their own ideas, and this was their final outcome. And as you can see, it's, I don't know if you can actually realize, but this isn't just photography, it is collage as well. So they have taken photographs, they've printed, they've layered, they've tried new things. And I still remember the student, they didn't really like their outcome. for whatever reason, and that is fine. However, what they created was a culmination of all their research. And if they were to do this again, they'd have done it a little bit different. And that's the beauty of photography. This is just you practicing your skills and developing your ideas. Not everything will be the perfect outcome, but that's how we learn to do new things. So as you can see, that is basically the start and end of a project. And this project took about 8 weeks, eight to 12 weeks, depending. And projects take different amounts of time. Some projects only have one shoot, some have three, some have more. So whatever you do, you've just got to remember within photography, you've got to have an interest in taking photos and actually using software to edit and manipulate, because it's not just I've taken a good photo and that's it. You've really got to want to develop your skills, and you want to be able to research and actually take inspiration from all these photographers or artists who might give you some ideas. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop it.